Hello, and welcome to the Weshtern Philosophy Podcast. Two friends with oceans and oceans discussing the unseen forces in our lives through the lens of music, mystery, and crack. This week, we tackled the topic of adventure.
So at the end of The Lord of the Rings, Bilbo, who's the original protagonist of the Hobbit book, he's going away basically on his last journey to Grey Havens and then onwards to the West. And how you want to interpret the West, that I'll leave that up to you. It's lovely that he's like, I'm ready to go on another adventure. And I think everyone loves that. That it's so joyful to see someone where you're like, well, dude, you had a good innings, but you're nearly done now going, no, I'm actually ready for another, I think I'm quite ready for another adventure.
Are we just in time for the postman?
No, it's a huge van.
Yeah, on a tiny bohary.
There's always, yeah, exactly, on a bohary that just about fits in one way. So if anyone, God, I got such a fright driving up to yours. It wasn't the Gardaí this time. There's this place where you had this a lot when we lived in Doolin as well, like where people have their dogs out and the dogs just rush out the gate every time you drive by.
The sheepdogs are lethal.
Yeah, and
you
just want to like not kill them, so you make a huge swerve. But I was like, yeah, guys, if there's another car, you're getting it. Sorry, like it's just but you always get that adrenaline hit, and then it's like, okay, no, we're fine. Okay, we're okay. But yeah, driving in the west of Ireland, it
is. I think I just growing up in North Kerry, I just slow down around farmsteads, farmhouses, you know, because if there is a collie, and they go right for the tires as well, they're lethal. They're not even trying to chase the car. They're literally
trying to attack it.
Well, because they're trying to
actually coming in the door now.
Okay. Oh God, is this the firewood?
Yeah. Okay. I'll hold the fort, I suppose. This might get edited out. Anthony is taking a delivery of some firewood, which is vital. I mean, we'd be frozen solid here if we didn't have the big stove. And I'll be ordering mine in next week as well. Is this the moment to get a sponsorship deal by plugging where I get my firewood? Oh God. Is he gonna be dropping it in or what?
No, it'll just fuck it, I'm leaving all this in.
Yeah. I was chatting. I was talking about possible sponsorship deals of Clare Timber Merchants.
Oh, this would be great. You need to be out. This is like when we're playing in pots and one of us has to go to the bathroom and the other one has to like musically fill the space.
Usually the first couple of minutes people don't do anything, and then someone kind of tentatively.
No, he's gonna drop it out front. It was a good deal. We ordered it back in. Yeah, I will. We ordered it back in early September or late August, and we got a discount if we didn't need it immediately. Like if we ordered 6 weeks ahead. If you order 8 weeks, you get more. Anyway, but we're coming into that time of the year, Bart, aren't we? Roaring fires.
100%, and I do love it. Now my back boiler is gone at the moment, so that is going to have to be fixed. But good start. But keep it. Don't stop it.
Yes. Okay. URL stream. No, hold on a second. Start recording. There we go. And now I've recorded the video as well. You'd think, given that I only have 2 buttons to press, you'd think I'd manage to push both.
They're very hard to find, these buttons.
They are. I'm getting worse. Like I'm spending more time on the tech.
We've made it easier for you with the microphones, and now you're just. It's like people who are close to a venue are always the ones to come late. You know,
when it was like a terrifying hodgepodge of different interfaces and microphone types and stuff, I had to be on my toes. Now I'm getting fucking lazy.
And you were like, I am the Matrix. You loved that.
Plugged into all the wires.
Yeah, exactly. Neo over here. Fuck it, where were we going at all? How are you?
We were talking about sheepdogs, and then we were talking about firewood, just in case anyone was not completely sure we lived in rural West of Ireland. I am grand, Bart. I am grand. I don't think I have any crack in particular. I suppose it's okay to say this, but like I'm working on a project with Gentian Press and Darren McKeown and former guest Jane Carkill on a book about Biddy Early, which is, you know, the wise woman, the Banfassa and medicine woman from Fecal in East Clare. Eddie Lenihan has a book about her, which is very good. And Dara has written a book and Jane is illustrating it. And Connor of Gentian Press will print it in a letterpress printing style. So I'm doing some photos and videos for that. And it's very, very cool to be involved in that world, as in Biddy's world, but also the world of letterpress printing, which I think is so cool that just through dint of like, they're such visceral machines, you know, and it's just this idea that you can make books. I think that's really cool, you know, that like you can, you know, you can turn knowledge into a physical form. And I know we kind of take that for granted now, but like it's very direct. You're not going to a publisher or anything. Yeah. This is Connor doing it in the Stún Varna. Excuse me. And then Katie's aunt, Judith, runs Full Circle Press over in California. So visited there as well. And so yeah, I've been to a few letterpress print shops in the last year. I love that. I love the idea of a person and a bit of technology being able to reclaim knowledge, create it and disseminate it, you know, without bigger or other parties involved. Yeah, there is something. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was mowing the lawn, mowing
it sounded Irish. Like there's the field at the back and just getting it ready for the winter. And I was thinking, like, Tolkien would have hated this, that I'm using a direct, like an engine to do this work, but still a lot of it is physical. Like I'm there with a string and I'm still like I'm wrecked after it. You know, it's like. And it's a big field as well.
It is.
And I got such joy of doing it. And I was standing there and I was looking out over the field like the Bull McCabe. I was like, I love,
the joyful Bull McCabe.
Yeah, exactly. The happy version of but the same sense of ownership. And he was like, get the Dutch people out of here. And I was like, oh no, shit, I'm one of them. Oh, never mind, this is too complex. But, it's interesting that the more technology you add, or the more like space between the person and the thing itself you add, the more diffuse it becomes. But actually, when you have a press and a person and a product, that still feels pretty direct. And in a weird way, a guy in a strimmer in the field still feels fairly direct as well. Whereas
your body is involved. Like when Judith,
if it was just a combine harvester, then it wouldn't have been the same thing.
Yeah, well, even they take skill, you know. But the robot combine harvesters are probably where it gets a bit weird. But like Judith, when she was operating one machine that was it was a punch, I think is what they call it. So it picks up the piece of card and stacks it vertically, and then this thing comes in and like a hammer hits it and punches out the shape, and then it drops it into a second pile. The paper's picked up by suction. So this arm comes down, but it's got a little suction thing on it that holds the paper and places it to be punched. But Judith can hear by the sound of the suction whether it needs to go up or down.
Yeah.
So as she's there, she's like reaching in, adjusting valves and stuff. Like you're in the machine, you know, as it's working. And it's like a real collaboration between person and mechanics.
This is it, and thank you, because my metaphor is going to hold up, because the old BC that I use for lowing them on, like it's the same where like if she starts to sound a bit in distress, I have to stop and take it handy, and then a huge bit of grass will get thrown out.
Yeah.
And I also love that Irish people always refer to machines as her.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Which I wonder if that's from the Gaeilge, or
I don't know.
But it's such a lovely thing, like, and but with the book, like, I think my mum actually gave my daughter a like beautiful version of the first book of Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. So that obviously is made by a big corporation or whatever, but it is beautiful. Like, it's completely illustrated with fold out things and whatever, and they've found a nice middle ground as well between not shattering your own imagination. So it's mainly details and stuff, but it does make every page really come alive, because it's like, oh look, there's the little thing there, and there's the little engravings, and so there's something beautiful about books that are works of art.
Yeah, and also you don't need anyone's permission to print anything.
Yeah,
you know,
which used to be different.
yeah, like again, if you're trying to publish a book with Penguin or HarperCollins or something, they're going to publish what sells.
Yeah,
Whereas if you've got a printing press, you publish whatever you want, and I love that. I absolutely love that. So that's what I've been doing. I have a bit of filming for that. We went out to visit Fecal and things like this, and it's all been because Biddy, we haven't even talked about Biddy herself, but she's a fascinating fascinating person. So that's me. How are you doing, Bart?
Well, my house is suddenly asking for a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. There were leaks, there were problems, there were loads of stuff that needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing it. It stressed me out because you're like, oh my God, money and all that. But actually, I'm finding joy in doing some of it. Mm-hmm. Like I was putting, fucking silicone kit around the base of toilets and making that nice. And then we were doing stuff with floors. I was doing stuff outside, getting like our little apple orchard kind of in order. And there's real joy if you like. It was nearly as if the house and the garden went, hello, can we get a bit of attention, please? Yeah. We need you. If you want to live here, you're going to have to put some energy in, and you can't just outsource all of it. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking as well what you were saying about the printing press, that I love in the Terry Pratchett stories that the wizards at the Unseen University are like, you can't be doing that stuff. You can't be doing that with magic books, especially because the printed type, it's going to be going in there, and they're going to use it on other books. And what kind of cookbooks do you think you're going to get if they've printed this before? And I was like, it's a big joke, but there is some truth, or it feels like there's some truth to that there is an energy in like really making these thoughts of authors physical, and then going, okay, and then another thing, would there not be something of the old author in it? My rational self would say no, but my fairy loving self would say yes.
Well, you think of where it comes from, where people used to copy books by hand. Yeah. I can imagine the idea of like movable type being absolutely abhorrent. Yeah. And devaluing the books. Yeah. And now we look at it from the other side, and it adds value to them because it's not ChatGPT,
Yeah, compared to what it is now. Yeah, no, 100%. But so that's the crack. Now, I didn't get stopped by the guards this week, which is a great benefit to... Oh, sorry, that's you. That's you, yeah. Me, the notebook. So we had, if people listen to the intro to the last episode, they will have now found out that we don't always prepare heavily for these podcasts.
How dare you, Bart?
I was so delighted when someone came up to me and was like, so do you guys do much prep? And I was like, nah, not even a tiny bit. So I was delighted that anyone could have that illusion. It was probably only that one person. Yeah. But so we were talking about topics. Well, we weren't talking about it. We were just like, what topic? And I just went through the list and I went, this one speaks to me, but I have zero thoughts on the matter. I just had a feeling of like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you'll just bounce it over to me.
And then I'll see what falls out of my hat.
Well, you introduce it then, Bart.
Oh, this never happens. So when I was going through the listine, I saw the word adventure, and it really... I had a feeling in my body. It sounds horrible. Okay, I'm going to pretend to be normal now. And I thought, there's something to this, but I haven't really given it much thought. So the only thing that came up for me was, we are huge Tolkien nerds.
I knew it.
Yeah, you knew it.
I always on find an adventure.
A way. That one, I'm going on an adventure. But the main one that stuck out to me was, sure, you all know the stories, guys, right? Yeah. So at the end of The Lord of the Rings, Bilbo, who's the original protagonist of the Hobbit book, is ancient, and he's going away basically on his last journey to
the Grey Havens.
The Grey Havens, and then onwards to the West, and how you want to interpret the West, that I'll leave that up to you. But it seems a paradisal kind of continued existence, but an afterlife in a sense as well. And it's lovely that I think this is in the book as well, not just in the film, where that he's like, I'm ready to go on another adventure, and and I think everyone loves that.
Yeah.
When you see, like, he is 140 or something by the like, they live a bit longer than humans, but that was the main thing that came up for me, was like that it's so joyful to see someone where you're like, well, dude, you had a good innings, but you're nearly done now. Going, no, I'm actually ready for another. I think I'm quite ready for another adventure, and that there's something so joyful in that. And I was kind of thinking, what does that mean? But it probably has something to do with that. As people always say, the journey is the thing that's worthwhile more so than the end goal. And lovely that even in your last days or your last hours, you could still make that a worthwhile journey. I think that's what came up for me.
It's beautiful. Now, I will say that the first thing that came to my mind was like, we're definitely going to end up talking about Tolkien. Is there anything
Is
there anything we could put in front of us?
Well, we have adventures.
Yes. What was I do want to come back to Tolkien.
We really always want to come back to Tolkien,
because I think it'll happen anyway.
Yeah.
But what was the last adventure you went on, Bart?
Well, I'm on a few. Maybe the podcast. Mm-hmm. It depends how you scale it. Like, you go on to small adventures. I was actually talking to Yvonne about this last night. We were just sitting in having a wee glass of wine on a Wednesday. I know, guys. I know. It's an issue.
# Wednesday wine.
Wednesday wine month. But we were talking about. Well, I was saying to her how grateful I am for the fact that she was willing to come on this adventure to Ireland with me, because sometimes she's found it quite tricky. Well, we both have, but for her in a different way. And I said, I'm so grateful to you because I love it so much, because I have a sense of adventure here quite often. I will go into a cafe or a lunchroom, and I will meet someone and something will unfold. Like, and like whole beautiful conversations will unfold. And it might even be that next week that person will give me a buzz and they'll go, hey, actually, Bart, do you want to play this gig with me? Or do you want to do this? Or you want to present this thing? Or do you want, like, let's go on another adventure. And I feel that there is huge adventure potential around here. Or you go into nature, and you have see like wild animals, and you just have, there's huge potential for adventure. And then from those adventures, other adventures come. So we were talking about it last night. Actually, I have a lot to say on this. Funny, I thought it was completely empty, but it's one of the things I love here. I love that I've always, like, if I have a bit of time to myself, I'm like, you know what I'll do? I'll go to Ennistimon and let's see what happens. Go to the Cliffs of Moher and see what happens. Now, usually if I go to the Cliffs of Moher, I'll be playing music. But, like, still, it's always different.
Yep.
I was busking at the Cliffs 2 days ago, and mad shit. Like Japanese ladies wanting to sing You Are My Sunshine with me while doing TikTok moves, which was very odd.
We'll link to the video.
Yeah. We'll have to find them. And me singing with a sort of barbershop lads who were in their 80s from America, and it was just like, mad shit. And you come home with your cup completely full because you're like, oh, that was a day. I didn't know what kind of day I was going to have this morning. And I didn't have that so much before coming here. It was much more regimented and like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to be sort of like that. I'm going to do this and it's going to be a day at work. What's your day at work like? So there's a huge sense of adventure. But then when you ask, like, what adventure did you actually go on that's like a big quest, because those are small, like, adventures. We'll bring it straight back to Lord of the Rings about the that all paths tie into the one road. You know, I can't remember the poem.
The road goes ever on and on out from the door where it began.
Far
ahead the road is gone, that others follow it who can. Now I at last with weary feet.
Until I find some larger way where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say, something like that. Well, we'll have to.
We're definitely going to clip this.
Yeah, 100%.
We started so strong.
But on big adventures, there's more stuff like moving here, starting a business, starting a podcast. That stuff is our ongoing quest. My quest into the trad world, trad music. I think it's time you add some fucking value.
Says Bart, draining his coffee. God, you went through this quick enough, Bart.
Hey, it wasn't a full cafetiere French press, so
I can make another.
You can.
So first of all, just as you were chatting, I was writing down my own kind of associations with adventure.
Yeah.
So for me, adventure is defined by challenge, travel, learning, and I wrote chance of failure. But I would say unsure of outcome is probably maybe a little bit more. And I think definitely challenge is a big part of mine, is like I really need to put myself into a place where there's a serious chance of failure. And I think in my head that is like, related to the amount of learning that you can possibly get out of it as well. So I, in my younger days, maybe still had an awful habit of just like throwing myself into situations where I was like, I have no idea how this is gonna pan out. And I think for me, what I enjoy about adventure, what gives me a bit of a high of adventure, one is the stimulation of it, right? Because you're shit happens on an adventure. Like you said, it's not your 9 to 5. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. So, and definitely travel would be a primary, even though I don't think every adventure does involve travel, like mine definitely have. So when I think of my adventures, I'm in a new place. I'm usually trying to figure out how this new place works, where I sleep, how I get a bite to eat, what I'm going to do here, what the people are like, what their priorities are, how they live their lives. I'm trying to get on top of that, trying to do whatever it is my job is to do, whether it's just to sightsee or learn or connect or whatever it is. And I think one of the cool things about adventure and that kind of adventure is that you can push yourself past where you thought your limits were. And because you are literally putting new stimulus into your body where you're like, I've never encountered this before. I don't know how I'm going to respond. And it gives you a chance to kind of maybe draw on resources and abilities that you didn't know you had before you did it. We talk a lot about like nurturing talent and stuff like that. And that's definitely important, staying home and practicing and all this stuff. But also like testing it, like just seeing, am I able for this? I literally think it unblocks like yang chi in the body. Maybe a little bit of warrior chi as well, because adventures can be stressful. That's in the Lord of the Rings as well, when everyone's talking about Bilbo's stories and how they were lovely, amazing adventurous stories, and Bilbo's like, they didn't feel like that when they were happening, man. They were terrifying. And so I think that's the draw of adventure for me.
And that's also the deeper meaning of the Lord of the Rings compared to the Hobbit, is that there's moments where Sam is actually talking kind of at a meta level about adventure, and he's like, I thought it might be more like a there and back journey like Mr. Bilbo's, and it's like, but no, we're actually caught up in a story that's much darker, but it might be more meaningful in the end. It's kind of the sense that you get from it. There's the lighthearted adventures, and then there's the adventures that are going to shake you to your core. But taking it like, I was thinking as well, where you were talking there about the being unsure of the outcome. I think that is a huge part of it. What it made me think of now, I had a lovely chat yesterday with a musician locally who I hadn't met before, and and he's a backer as well, and it was really funny because I'm a backer, play guitar while other people play melody, like yourself. You play the bass while other people play the melody.
I'm the backer's backer.
Yeah, no, you're not. No, we're the backing section together. But and he was too. So he's like, yeah, we're like ships in the night. We, they need us at the gigs. We never play together because they need one of us at least at one of these gigs.
But not too many of us.
But not too many, because then we're gonna get into a fist fight. And he was, it was funny. He was like, we should get a fucking festival of backers together. And I was like, yeah, and we wouldn't play. We would just complain about the melody instruments. Let's go. Have you ever played this fucker? Yeah, I know. Oh God, he's up himself. But
everything is in Mixolydian with this fella.
Oh, I hate it. There's no resolve. It's always like. But he, we were talking about how you have to chance it to become a good backer, and you have to. And he's definitely much further along than I am, but it's like, that's fine as well. Like, I like that it's an inclusive journey in a sense, not in the DEI sense, which I do not like, but in the because I love people being included in things, but not based on their identity markers, just because everyone should be able to join, and then we should be looking at the people, not their identity markers. But there I went again with my fucking grumpy old man. But what I like about this is, like, even when I said, "Oh, I'm okay at it, at the backing," but it's not, it's not where it could be at, and you could see him kind of going, "Yes," but there was no ego or anything. It was just, he was just like, "Yeah, that is right, and that is fine. That is perfect. You're on that journey." He wasn't like, "Yeah, you're less than," or whatever. He was like, and he also wasn't like, "No, you're brilliant." It was just like, "No, yeah, you're slowly growing, and that's great, and you're in the ballpark where you need to be for it to work, because otherwise that would be an issue, But we were talking about, you go into sessions and you have to try it, and then sometimes you have to come up to that wall where you're like, "Oh, he said, and then you come to that moment where you say, "I've no business being here."
Yeah.
And I thought being here was a bit strong, but I completely understand what he meant, because it's like, you have to go out. I know people who are trying to learn backing and trad, and they're trying to do it all from their bedroom. And obviously, most of the practicing you do is at home, but you really have to test it in the real world of experience. And if you don't, it's not going to work. So you have to kind of push it a bit and go play with people who are better than you, and go, "Okay, I'm going to try it. But then also you have to go, and now I have to stop because I'm actually messing up the music, and I've found my limit." But then you have to come back and try it again.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting thing, like, there is a real chance of failure, and sometimes, I'm sure we've both had this, where you're in a session and you're like, "Oh God, this is above me. Like, I can't really, this is beautiful and they're great, and I can't really add to it very well." Yeah. It's a painful, like, it's kind of a sweaty, red-faced kind of feeling, But it's supposed to be that, and then you have to come back, and it gets better, and you listen to the reflections you get from other people. You kind of, people go, "Oh, really like that." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. I thought I wasn't maybe on it, but you like, okay."
I had a wonderful session where Andreas de Stack was sat behind me playing bouzouki, and fuck it, every time I played something he liked, he'd be like, slap me on the shoulder, "Yes!" And it was the most wonderful feedback. And then obviously there'd be times where I'd like, "Oh, I'll try this," and then just silence, and I'm like, okay. But
no enthusiasm there.
The interesting thing, and it was former guest Joe Hendel pointed this out to me or us, maybe it was at Morning Dew, but he was like, trad is like reverse jazz. In jazz, the backing is mostly set, or at least the chords are set, and then the melody is improvised, whereas in trad, the melody is set and the backing is improvised. Yeah. So I don't know, do non-trad aficionados or listeners know this, but like most trad backers, we don't really know what we're going to do when the song starts. Like it is
when the tune starts.
When the tune starts. Sorry, yes, I need to update my vocabulary.
Someone said that at a session we were at. Someone went like, "Oh, that was a lovely song," and everyone just went, "It's not a song, it's a tune." It was a horrible, like it was really like judgmental fucking shit. And I was like, why do we all feel so strongly about that? But it is kind of just a clear, like it's the first step of the trad lingo, I suppose.
It is like, are you playing a tune or a song?
Yeah.
So that's always interesting. That can fail, and there are times like where you do try something and it works really well, and then there's times where it falls flat in its face, and there's times where it worked in your bedroom and it does not work in a live session. And if I didn't have that chance of failure, I don't think I'd be that interested in playing trad. As in, there's the social aspect of trad, which will always be there, but like I love, because you're never finished. Right? You're never finished. There's always more to do. You know, there's always more to learn, more things to try. And yeah, that keeps it fresh.
100%. I said that to your man yesterday as well. I was like, shouldn't we be eternally grateful that we're on a staircase that never ends?
Yeah.
And that we will keep ascending, you know, if health allows, until the day we die.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful feeling. I think it's actually one of the things that can really give you a feeling of happiness is if you're constantly taking a step upwards.
Yeah.
And one of my my lovely Dutch shaman and Chinese medicine practitioner Wout, he said that as well. Like when I was really nervous about a big like musical performance I was doing or something, and he's like, "Sure, if you weren't scared, it wouldn't be any crack."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no. So it's that fear of failure that's definitely part of it. Now, the session is like the Lord of the Rings. We could talk about the session forever because it is. I do think it's like a little microcosmos of everything, and there's so much, so much to it, and boundaries and all that stuff as well. But yeah, adventures in the wider sense. Is it right that there is a Chinese proverb about like it was one you heard a lot during the COVID times? What is it now? It's like catastrophe is
crisis.
Yeah,
Chinese have the same word for crisis and opportunity. No, that's not true. But I do like the idea.
The idea is actually maybe we should have a Western like.
Well, there's necessity is the mother of invention. Which is kind of close.
But that's more like you're under force of something and you're doing it. But I do believe, like I always saw it when people were saying that, like it's a very choppy sea.
Yeah.
And if you're a good, you know, captain, then you can actually navigate that and get out something. You can actually, there is something to be gained in those times as well.
Well, there is a line from, I think it's Mencius, and I will probably feck up my second quote of the pod, but it's like, when heaven is about to place great responsibility on a man, it will first exhaust his muscles with labor, frustrate his efforts, grind him down, and beset him on all sides from misfortune, so as to test his mettle, strengthen him, and lift him up for when the real time comes.
I like that.
You know, roughly speaking. Because that's the thing about the adventure, like we look at them as being like little hero's journey kind of things, little self-contained things, but like they're not, you know. And that, again, this is another thing the Lord of the Ring shows, is that like they exist within a wider context, and this failure that you're experiencing at the moment might just be darkest before the dawn kind of things. And you know, maybe this is wandering a bit off track, but like I just think like the goal of living beings is to keep living. Like, you know, sometimes if you're in a circumstance where you're really trapped, there's no obvious action you can take in order to better your circumstances. Sometimes all you can do is just endure and keep going, because there is stuff happening outside of your frame of reference, outside of your sight, that might change things. And I guess that's where like stories of adventure are so important, because they tell us these stories of these people that went through these really dark times and succeeded. And adventure can become a kind of an exciting thing then. And like that excitement can maybe get you through some of the darker times, because you're like, yeah, there's steps on the journey, but I've heard this story, and now I'm having my own story of adventure, rather than just, this is really shit. This is much harder than I thought it was going to be. This is not panning out the way I hoped it would.
Exactly, and that is that thing in that kind of meta-analysis that Sam does in The Lord of the Rings, where they're like, oh, this might be a good story to listen to, but not a good story to be in. Yeah. And I think that's a powerful, like there's so much to that. And then you do have people who can do that in life. We talked about... is he Adesanya? Is it the MMA fighter? Yeah. Like, he has this very strongly that he's like, oh, this is just the part of the hero's journey where I'm knocked down so I can get back up again. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know. I'm a bit ambivalent about what that's like, because in a way I think that's pretty powerful that you can step back from your own life and look at it that way. But then again, can you really play your part fully if you can't be constantly stepping outside of the narrative, because then you're more of a director than a player in a way. Well,
this I think is one of the big stories, is like, when do you endure and when do you just say, oh no, fuck this noise, this is a dead end, I need to, and I think believing you're the hero of your own story and that everything's going to work out for you might lead you down a path where where you would have been better served by walking a different path rather than beating your head against a brick wall. But then you step back from that again, and maybe that served a purpose too,
And that's that thing we talked about last week about things having their right place and seeing, isn't that in a way also wisdom, is like being able to tell when is it this and when is it that. And I think that's why you and I always loved getting into these conversations originally, because we love like parsing, like, oh, there was this thing that happened, but it wasn't quite that. It was just a little. The flavor was slightly different, and there's something very excited about that, because it feels like you're parsing that stuff together to get to a further place. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no easy answers. There's no one size fits all. Katie was asking me about my time in Hangzhou in 2011, 2012, when I was studying Chinese medicine there in China, and it's very easy for me to say it was one of the happiest and most rewarding and colorful parts of my life. And she was like, so you're kind of just saying, so you're just having the best crack the whole time? And I was like, no, I was horribly ill. Hangzhou was freezing. I didn't realize how long the winters were there. It rains like the same as it does in Ireland. Summers are hot, but winters are very wet and windy. And I constantly had like a cough or a cold or a flu, and I was working and studying. So often I was doing 17-hour days, and it was incredibly difficult and incredibly frustrating. And I thought of giving up many, many times. I definitely thought I'd made a mistake frequently.
Yeah.
It was still like the best time. Like, it was like all of that is true. And the funny thing about the adventure stories, you think of the old Westerns where the hero comes to town and fixes the townspeople's problems. And then what happens? Does he settle down and build a house? No, he either dies or he moves on. And I think there's something interesting in that like we, the lesson there is not that we should sit back and wait for a hero to ride to town to fix all our problems. The lesson is that we need to become the heroes of our own stories, because these people will drift in and out of our lives and offer a bit of assistance. But at the end of the day, you're in it on your own. So you can draw from the hero's stories, but you can't rely on them to save you.
Yeah, I don't know if you're in it on your own, but it is your own story.
It's true. Yeah.
I was thinking of a good friend of mine going through a really dark time, and then me and another friend actually kind of holding their story a little bit, where we were like, I know this is easy for us to say, but I think it's soon gonna get better. And it was so dark, and I could see that they couldn't like accept that, because it's too, they're in it, and it's like there was enough to be dealing with, and then also, but then we could hold that and go, no, actually and we'll grease the wheels a little bit for you by keeping that in our thoughts, and literally in our prayers as well. And then when it does change, you can. So I don't think you're doing it on your own, but it is your own story.
Yes.
And it's actually beautiful if we can do it together. Mm-hmm. But we're always going to be. Yeah, we're always going to be a character in our own, like, well, hopefully the hero of our own story, but then we're the villain in someone else's story sometimes. And yeah.
And the adventure changes as you get older, doesn't it? Like, I remember a friend of mine, after her leaving cert, her and two friends three Irish girls, they all wanted to go traveling, and they wanted to go on a big journey after the leaving cert. They were like, we really want to celebrate this. We want somewhere foreign and exotic and like hot and somewhere we can backpack. I know, we'll go to Bolivia. And they hitchhiked through Bolivia, this impossibly dangerous country, and like they were fine. They saw some really awful stuff. They got there and they were like, oh, we might have maybe made a bit of a mistake, but nobody bothered them. And those are the kind of adventures you can have in your teens and 20s. Like, I look back on some of the stuff I did. I went to Minsk in Belarus when I was like 16. China when I was 19. Africa when I was about 21, 22. I went to Lesotho in South Africa. I went back a few other times with a charity I used to work with, Action Lesotho. And like just wonderful. But now the thought of doing one of those journeys, you just know too much. Like you're just way more aware of the risks. You're like,
I'm just thinking of me going to St. Peter. There was a Dutch fashion brand in the Netherlands called Jesus, and it was like a G and a hyphen and SUS, and they were kind of irreverent. Like their logo was like a little thorny crown, So it was pretty.
It wasn't a barred G chord.
Thank you, you intense nerd. No, it was not. But that is a lovely sound, though. Yeah. Jesus chord. You can sing it for me here.
Jesus, no. But if anyone wants to play a G and a C and a D together at the same time,
it all happens sometimes during the episode. But anyway, they have this kind of irreverent kind of clothing, and one of the things they had was like, I had a T-shirt with sort of Andy Warhol type sort of colors and stuff with Lenin's face on it, and I wore that in the fucking Kremlin.
I love that.
Well done.
That's my favorite Jesus voicing. That Jesus for.
It's very nice. Yeah.
Jesus.
God, he's lost it completely. No, the face as well. But like you say, like that was so stupid. And someone said to me, like, do you think that's a good idea? Like a Russian, someone said to me, do you think that's a good idea? And I was like, oh well, it's fine, isn't it? And it's just because you don't know a thing. But then I think it's and you kind of get away with it because people see your ignorance,
Yeah.
But then in a way as well, about not doing those adventures, it's also because you're just taking a whole different road in life. Like a lot of the time people say, oh, my college days were brilliant, and my college days were brilliant, especially in Galway, in Nijmegen as well, but especially in Galway. It was a heap of crack. But then some people go, oh, I was the happiest then, and I'm like, nah. It's a very nice mix of lots of little adventures and a lot of liberty.
Yeah.
Like you have a lot of freedom, and then you step into later life and you have more responsibility. Maybe you have family, kids, or business, or partner, or someone you're caring for, or something you're doing in your community. It can be a lot of different things. But we're all taking, I think if we're taking the right path, in inverted commas, or anyway moving towards a right path, it will take on more responsibility because we're more able for it. And we need that challenge as well. But then sometimes you will hear those people who are like, no, that it was best then. I'm like, no, that's not right. It would be very sad if I was still living that life. But it was a lovely part of it. But that's also why you can't go back and do the maddest travel like that now, because it doesn't suit your position in life, and you're too encumbered, but in a good way as well.
Yeah, and look, sometimes that comes to people later in life.
Yeah.
You know, they hit 40 or 60 and they decide to start traveling. You know?
Oh, I'm not saying about travel necessarily, but you're talking about those kind of irresponsible, mad adventures.
Yeah, but I think there is an energetic there that is so appealing.
Yeah.
And like, I went into it without thinking in my 20s. I don't know what it would take for me to recapture that now. I'm not going to hitchhike through Bolivia, but that feeling, I think, you know, maybe that's again why we need the stories of adventure, because when we do become, like, I think you used the word encumbered by so many responsibilities, and they're very joyful responsibilities a lot of the time, but like, how do we free up that consequence-free joy that we have with adventures? The other thing I used to love about adventures was that I overthink an awful lot, and if I had loads of external problems to solve, that was great. Like I would find it much easier to do that than to be like left in my room with nothing to do for 3 or 4 hours.
It can kind of spin out of control.
Yeah, and that was just really, and like you could say that was a bit of a distraction, but yeah, I don't know. Speaking of like irresponsible things we used to do, when I was in China in 2008, this story had broke about how at that time you could still use software like Skype and stuff in China. They've changed all that now, but the story broke, I think, on the BBC that China had developed voice recognition software, so it was monitoring all Skype calls, and it published a list of words that the software would pick up on and would flag up the conversation, basically. And us being 19, 20 years old and Skyping our parents a couple of times a week, thought it'd be really funny to try to trick my mum into saying Dalai Lama or Tibet or something. And I just think you have a little red light going off somewhere in Beijing going, I wouldn't fucking do it now.
No.
Jesus Christ. But you're right, there is that. When somebody is young and on an adventure, they get away with more. But if you try to do that a bit older, perhaps you will not be looked upon so kindly. You should know better, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think, like what you're saying about capturing that spirit. So, in the masculine work I'm doing with Niall Graham, who we'll have on the pod hopefully later this year, he's talking about these 3 male archetypes of the king, the warrior, and the wild man. And I will not go into too much because he can obviously do that much better. But I think that wild man is like just a joyful savage in a way, you know. And I do think that adventure has something to, like, savage sounds a bit harsh, but you know, like, it's quite primary, just the joy of life and of sex and of nature and and I do think, like, we definitely still interact with those by jumping into the sea or even playing music or being physical with our partner or play, you know, there's so much. So I do think there's a lot of ways in which you can get into that spirit. I think it's akin to that, and definitely I hope, actually, what you were saying about travel at a later age, I really hope that'll be there then again as well. But what I see with a lot of my friends who are traveling at a later age is that they will also still find some responsibility in that. Like I just saw a Dutch friend of mine, Job Cornelissen, who's a musician. He just went to like England with a couple of pals, and they were playing for disadvantaged schools, I think. And you could see from what he shared on social media that it was like a great adventure, that they were having a heap of crack, but they were also doing something. It's nearly as if that is just as if that is something like a thing a slot we really want to fill later in life, I think. I'm also thinking now, because I have so many responsibilities now as a young dad with a young family and stuff as well, I think by the time, hopefully, please God, they'll all be, you know, very well adults and getting into their own adventures in a safe and responsible way.
They definitely won't.
The fear. Oh God. But like say everything goes well and they fly the nest in about 10 to 15 years, and all's going well, and suddenly I've had this capacity for care all the time, caring all the time for small people who are asking for that and depending on that. And then suddenly that capacity frees up. Like, it needs to go somewhere. And you hear about empty nesters, about parents who are just like, oh, the kids are gone, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I really would like to then go on a few more adventures.
Yeah.
But I think that capacity for care and that kind of need to care will still be there. Such a stupid example, but I remember when I was doing like theater stuff in the Netherlands in my early 20s, that or mid 20s, that like loads of time I would have to get a lift off someone, and they would always just do it. These people who were like 10, 15 years older than me, they were always like, oh yeah, Bart, I'll pick you up there and I'll do this. And I honestly was thinking like, I'm way too selfish for that. Jesus, I wouldn't be fucking driving out of my way to pick up some snotty 20-year-old all the time. And now I'm like, oh, of course. I've so many things I'm looking after. Who gives a fuck if I'm picking you up? So it's funny how your perspective changes.
Well, I'm glad you used the word selfish, because I think adventures are a little bit selfish as well. Like if you are going to like leave all your responsibilities, which are probably far fewer in your 20s than they are in your 30s and 40s, but you're still abandoning a few things and you're going off on an adventure. And I lived in the south of China for 3 months in Yangshuo near Guilin, and I had a scooter, and it's probably my favorite object I've ever owned. And I would finish my morning and afternoon classes. I was studying Taiji and Mandarin, and then I would just hop on the scooter and I would set off. And Guilin province has these incredible karst mountains. It's actually the same as the Burren karst, but theirs are mountains, whereas ours is the
karst bedrock. As in kind of
the limestone.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at them, they look like something out of like the Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar movie. Just spectacularly beautiful. And we just set off on my bike, on my scooter, and go as far as I could. And then if I ran out of fuel, I remember I stopped in some village, didn't know the name of it, and asked a person for fuel. And they asked a person, led me to a person, led me to another person, led me to a fruit market. Then down the back of the fruit market, there was like a lady with, do you know one of those like fridges that open from the top that have like ice cream in them?
Yeah.
It was that, but it was full of 2-liter plastic bottles of gasoline. Yeah, and I just filled up with those and I headed home. And it was just that idea of like, oh, I've done my morning class, I've done my afternoon class, and now I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can go any direction I want to go in for as long as I want to go. And it was absolutely blissful. And at a certain point, I met a man in China he was Weshtern. He was in his, let's say, 50s or 40s or 50s or maybe early 60s. I don't want to give too many details. But he had lots of responsibilities at home. He had sick family members and so on. But he had been coming to Asia for many, many years. And he was just abandoning a lot of responsibility so that he could still come back to Asia and have adventures. And I remember really strongly feeling I could become that, and I desperately do not want to. So one of the reasons that my approach to adventure has changed is because I think it's given me so much. Like the countries I traveled to and the experiences I had gave me so much. I'm like, I can't just keep taking. That doesn't feel right to me. So now when I travel, I want to collaborate. I want to see if there's any way I can at least learn and ideally bring back or give back or, form connections or something like that. Not just lap up every ounce of experience I can. And just for me, it's because I've done that. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I think that's how you often engage with these places initially. But I think I've just kind of, I wouldn't want to spend my life doing that.
No, and maybe it's also to do with that you're as you go on, you actually experience that giving is the greater joy in a way as well. Yeah. And then if you can connect that within the travel, something that's also kind of coming up for me when you were telling that story with the motorbike and just assuming that the bottles of gasoline would be there, like a thing that I'm really thinking about a lot, and we talk about this as well, you and I, off the pod, that kind of really stepping into a mindset of abundance. There is something, we're encumbered by, I'm going to speak for you, but I think it's true. And I think for most people in the West, actually, encumbered by this sort of, like original sin of just feeling that if we're taking, it's always it's a bad thing. Whereas if you read a lot of like spiritual texts on this stuff, it's like, yeah, go for it. Take it all, and your light will burn all the brighter, and there's something with travel where you just do stuff. Like I remember the first night I went to Galway, I didn't have a place to stay. And I just, like, I emailed some guy who later became my landlord, and I was just like, I'm searching for a place to stay. I'm going on the train now. And that evening was just like, I come in and he was like, oh, so you're off the plane? I'm like, yeah, I'm taking the train from Dublin to Galway. What a fool I was. I'd never do that again now. I'd just take the bus. But because, geez, it stops fucking everywhere. But anyway, and he rang me on the train and he was like, that's great. What time will you be into the station? Obviously, there was no way of knowing that with Irish Rail. But anyway, I said, about that time. I said, just give me a buzz when you're nearly there and I'll pick you up and I'll bring you to the house. And it was just like, there was just like, yeah, there is on those adventures, there's just an expectation of things to work out, and they do.
Yeah, you do put yourself at the mercy of other people's generosity, and that's a lovely feeling.
Yeah.
It really is. The amount of people that help me out. Can we hear Blarney?
Blarney is so tired he had a grooming thing yesterday, right?
Yeah, Grooming Tales with Rachel in Ennis-Time, and she is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. She is so good, but he is wrecked.
I love how you said, like, he's aggressive. What did you say? Aggressively snoozing?
Aggressively snoozing. He's like,
and I can so identify with that. Like, sometimes you get into bed and you're so tired. I just go, literally like that. Just like, yeah, no, it's nice, but it's painful. I don't know.
Can't relax.
Yeah.
Must hold on to the tension.
Yeah, exactly. But he's our man Blarney. He's good at that. I don't want to say his name too often because he will.
He was having a wee dream there, and he normally kind of wakes himself up out of it. So I think you're okay. Just to dip back really quickly, have you read the Epic of Gilgamesh?
No.
Okay, so it's up on the shelf there. I'll give it to you. I think it's like about 4,000 years old. It's one of the oldest stories we have, and it is about a king and a wild man, Gilgamesh and Enkidu.
Oh yeah.
So might be interesting. I think it's a brilliant story. It's anyway. There is something. I think it's a little bit about attitude as well. Like, when you put yourself at the mercy of other people, I know of a fellow that travels and he never books accommodation. Like, he just sleeps wherever he can. If somebody gives him a bed, that's great, but otherwise he'll sleep in a bus station or a ditch or a bench or whatever, And that is a real adventure, but it's not necessarily the kind of adventure I'm personally interested in right now. I remember, like, friends of mine went to travel to the south of China and they came back to Shanghai, and I was like, how was the trip? And they were just like kind of shell shocked. I just met them as they came back from the train station, and it turns out they'd booked a train, and if you booked the fast train, it was like 9 hours, but they didn't understand what they were booking, so they booked a slow train which was 24 hours, and they had standing tickets.
Ooh.
And they were just like giddy with the struggle of it, but like, they'll remember that for the rest of their lives, and they survived, and we ragged them about it, and none of us ever made that fucking mistake ever again.
Like, we're such creatures of comfort, but then when we get out of the comfort, we do, like, that's that thing about getting out of your comfort zone. It's like, because you do, it's fucking great. Like, I love those Michael Palin travel books. they're brilliant. Like he did the Around the World in 80 Days, and then Sahara was one I had an audiobook of, and I listened to it a lot.
I have the printed books, and his photographer Basil Powell was a big influence on me when I started.
Oh,
Hong Kong photographer, yeah.
And it was so, like, so many of his stories are so fucking uncomfortable, but they are real adventures.
Yeah.
And for him, like, a rich man, and actually at an age as well, I think he was already, like, past his 50s when he started, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but he definitely still did it in his 70s.
Yeah.
And just to go, I'm famous, I'm rich, I have a lovely partner and kids, and now I'm going to be off for a couple of months. See all y'all's later, and I'm going on an adventure. And it's like that Bilbo thing. But why is it so joyous? Like, there's something about going... It's like that thing of, like, grinning and going, this is going to be hard. Yeah. There we go. I love that. Like, and it sometimes... I'm always moved more by people taking on life joyfully and the hardships of life joyfully. There was this song that came out a couple of months ago by this, I don't know if I shared it with you because I probably didn't think it was your cup of tea, but English musician called Tom Rosenthal, and he's kind of a weird husky voice, and he sings weird songs. Like he's one about, like, I have a big pot of hummus and it's boom, boom, boom. And you're like, yes, here we go, Tom.
I could relate to that.
Yeah. Like, if you cannot find a bridge, just get into your fridge. It's like he has weird stuff. But he had one song, which it's sad to say. Okay, listeners, look it up and imagine me crying the first 30 times I listened to it. And just think, oh my God, what a sad emo heap this guy is. Support your Patreon. I'm never listening to you again, you fucked up.
Support our Patreon. Buy Bart his monthly Kleenex allowance.
Oh, it's just like so self-indulgently getting emotional. But it's this song called How Could I Not? And it's just about, he's kind of singing basically about his relationship, and things can be a little hard, but how could I not love you? And I love that so much, because so many songs are like, oh, you're the best and this is brilliant, and or they are like, this is dark and everything is horrible. Like, this is my metal voice. And I love that he's in the middle there going like, oh, there's these small things. Why do you never leave your keys by where they're supposed to be? And Jesus, it's like a life full of troubles, but how could I not love you? And that moves me so much, because it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to be in a perfect state of love, but I have to meet hardship with love.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, I don't know, that just sets me off. Wow. I think that's so beautiful when you see people doing that. And that is adventure as well. I think that is, when Bilbo goes, I'm ready for another adventure. It's like, I'm going to get knocked down, I'm going to be in the dirt, I'm going to be uncomfortable, and I will do so joyously and gratefully. Thank you very much. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, little light in the darkness kind of thing. You know, I think it's
better to It's better to light a flamethrower than curse the darkness.
Go on, that's got to be Vimes, right?
Yeah.
I know it's Terry, but
It's
I think
Terry,
specifically it's Vimes. I think I've mentioned this before. I hate pretty much every cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, because they're all sad and miserable, whereas his one literally has a choir chanting Hallelujah in the choruses. Yeah. Like, it's not a sad song. It's a song about sad things, but about, like, the joy behind them. It's called Hallelujah. Yeah. Stop doing sad covers of it. You're missing the point. Drives me mad. But yeah, I think that is, and that's definitely, I think, the thing that moves me in the Lord of the Rings as much as well, because Tolkien fought in World War I. His son was an RAF pilot in World War II, and he was writing the Two Towers and sending them to him in letters while he was, like, in active combat. And so, you know, if anyone thinks the Lord of the Rings is just about, like, wizards and magic and stuff like that, like, the background to the author's life, the times he was writing those adventure stories in, they, you know, it shows that somebody who's going through that amount of external hardship still thought this was the most important thing they could do with their time.
And it also shows so beautifully how if you are literally in a ditch with bullets flying around your ears, because I think you wrote part of, no, did he write part of it in the trenches as well, or was that just the inception of I think in World War One? Anyway, that you can write a thing and you're like, I might not even live till tomorrow, but still this is worthwhile to do. And then like a couple decades later, it's like the most read book everywhere. And it's literally like, I think we talked about this before, like stop people from killing themselves because they were like so inspired by the hopeful parts of that story. And it also refers to such a deep, my sister's going to love all this chat about the Lord of the Rings, by the way. Always thinking of her. Yeah. Sorry, Annie. But she loves all the shout outs. I know it's very gratuitous. Sorry for the rest of the listeners. I won't stop doing it. It's my own thing. But it refers to such a deep underlying like spiritual message. He would have probably maybe said religious themes, but like I love where, spoiler alert, Jesus, this book is old. So Jesus. we don't need Jesus. Bring. Every time I say Jesus, you go bring. But so spoilers should not be needed. But like Boromir, the warrior, is part of the Fellowship. He dies, but he's tempted by the ring before he dies. And I love that then Gandalf also has like a resurrection, and he goes, or he has a resurrection. Boromir doesn't, but he finds out what happened to Boromir, and he goes, I could see that he was in anguish, but I'm glad he won out, or he made it, like he was victorious. I love that. Yeah, like he's fucking dead in the dirt. Yeah, but he's victorious. I love that idea. I like he was tempted, but he did the right thing in the end, and he died trying to save his fellows. Yeah, I love that. That always gets me. Yeah, I think it's one of the best death scenes in cinema as well. I thought the way very good in cinema, because it isn't in the book. They don't show.
No, they don't.
Just the aftermath.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so many brilliant memes as well, because then afterwards, like 2 of their fellowship are captured and they need to rescue them. But in the book, first they sing like a whole song and to Boromir's death. And I saw this meme of like the 2 hobbits, Merry and Pippin, like tied up with the orcs, and they're like, at least we know that Aragorn and stuff are going to save us, and they're just there going, now we're going to sing a song first,
There are parts to the book of the Lord of the Rings where you are like, the songs are getting a bit out of hand.
Well, it's not, but it's not a practical tale. Yeah, the audiobook version that I listen to a lot by Nigel Inglis, he's a lovely singer. I wonder if he wrote out the melodies or if he just improvised them, because they're quite powerful and distinct. It isn't just like, and it goes from like a little jig to like whole fucking homily kind of long aria, So,
No, he does. He's one of those voices which I think he sounds like old books. Yeah, I have some recordings of T.S. Eliot reading the Dry Salvage or the 4 quartets, and he has a voice like old books as well, and I love that. Love it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Go on talking about the Lord of the Rings forever, but
it is like we are just orbiting it. It's like what you call it, escape velocity. Like we needed to power the rocket of this podcast with a bit more propellant away from the Lord of the Rings. But no, we're just caught in its orbit, and I think we're both very, very happy.
Very happy over there. Yeah.
I did like that you mentioned the podcast as being a current adventure.
100%, because we're relying on something that is so what's the word, like it's so intangible, and there's so many bits where I'm sat here like feeling like such a fool, There's so many bits, like there was a bit earlier today like where I'm just like, how can you not connect these thoughts properly? Why are you making so many half sentences? So there's a real chance of failure. There's a real chance of upsetting people with the things we say, especially as we're trying to get a bit less apologetic. But so far, the response has been positive, and it seems to be worthwhile. It definitely is worthwhile. Even if no one listens to it, is worthwhile to... Well, okay, you do need an audience for a podcast, but it is like expressing these things openly and publicly is a worthwhile endeavor. But
I was thinking more about the technical challenges, but yeah, that's definitely there too.
It's such an adventure for me to watch you struggle with the technical challenges.
There's so many plugins. I knew nothing about them. There's a whole world of plugins. No, I can't go down that dark path. But it is cool to start doing something where you're like, oh, there's things we want to do here and we don't know how to do them yet, you know? Like a live show. I think I will just put it out here on the pod now because I would love to do a live show and I don't know how to do one. So the adventure will be figuring that out. But
it'd be lovely to do it, but I'm just thinking like we can work around the mechanics of doing it in a way that'll be enjoyable for us and a possible guests and all that, but then that's a lot more tech trouble for you. Like, it's so funny that every time I think we've cleared a tech hurdle, you're like, I want more hurdles. I need the quality. Like yesterday, you literally said, the longer we go on, the better I want it to sound. I'm like, oh no, this is never gonna. He's never gonna stop taking that stone up the hill and rolling it down again.
But do you know that old joke about Sisyphus, where like to turn it from a torture into like an enjoyable activity, all you need is a counter that ticks up 1 every time he reaches the top of the hill, and all of a sudden there's a tremendous sense of progression. But anyway, it has been an adventure. It'll continue to be an adventure, and I think as well with trad, like the trad backing, I think if it ever got easy and complacent, I would lose a bit of interest. So I like that we keep trying new things and keep the sense of adventure alive. And
stay tuned for the next adventure.
Shanae. This has been Weshtern Philosophy. Follow us on all the socials at Weshtern Philosophy Pod. If you want to support the podcast, you can join our Patreon to help the show grow, or make a one-off donation via the Ko-fi link in the episode description. We'll be back next week with more chats and another topic. Slán.